And so we talked very early about how, like, if you Google a thing that like, I need to fix my weight, or I need to fix my self-confidence, or I need to fix my relationship with my partner, and you get inundated with information. Like, I just simplified my wellness into 3 things. For Ben to show up as the best possible version of Ben, the 3 things I need to prioritize are quality sleep first, and enough of it, intentional movement, and connection with people that I love. And so for me, my friend calls it Ben math. As long as I do those 3 things, my life is great. And it's held true since. It's been 3 years. It's held true. As long as I move, as long as I sleep, and as long as I get to spend, like you are that guy today, like as long as I spend time with somebody that I care deeply about, my life is great.
An entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow. What's cracking?
What up, guys? Welcome back to the Creatures That Have It podcast in the studio in Los Angeles. I love being able to pop into a podcast studio when I'm in LA because I like to shoot podcasts in person because I really do feel like it adds a level of intensity to the podcast, a level of engagement to the podcast. And so I never do remote or virtual podcasts, at least anymore. I haven't done it in a number of years. And so when I'm in LA, I get to use a studio here that my buddy owns that really gives me a chance to link up with really amazing people that are in Los Angeles. And so today's guest is a dude named Ben Smith, who I've recently met. And it's so interesting how social media is it's a double-edged sword, right? Like you can get really, really caught in the throes of social media, and it could really bring you down, and it can be like truly a drug and an escape route for the rest of your life, or it could be an amazing community building, networking, relationship development tool. And so Ben recently reached out on Instagram, and he was like, hey dude, like there's a number of people that you and I have in common that have mentioned to me that we've got to meet. And it was so interesting because he was just on my buddy Chase's podcast, and I was like, I got to meet that dude. And so we just like locked it up, and that was a few weeks ago, and here we are. And Ben and I were just catching up before we're sitting down together, and the guys live such an interesting, super motivating, like an inspiring life in the sort of health and fitness world for almost 2 decades. Was in the military, was a captain in the military and in the Army, kind of came out of that and had a little bit of an identity crisis and went through a pretty dark place, which I could totally relate to. And I'm sure a lot of you listening can as well. And out of that came this new life that he's built and developed and evolved. And it really focuses on a whole slew of things. Of course, fitness is involved in that, but really mental health, and he's going to talk to us about this presence training and coaching that he does, which I'm really excited about because I'm always looking to be more present. Presence is like, it's such a hard thing to accomplish because there's so many damn distractions in our lives today. Like there is nothing but distractions. And so even the thought of just like being present for a few minutes can drastically change my day. So, Ben, welcome to the show, dude.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate being here. It's nice to meet you in person finally. Yeah. I'm so proud of you for remembering all of that. Like I said all of that stuff like 4 minutes ago, and then you just off the dome. But yeah, you're totally right. If this moment right now is the only thing that's real, like why would you want to be anywhere else? Like the past is gone forever. Tomorrow never comes. We've only ever existed right now. And for the first 32 years of my life, I was somewhere else all the time. And finally now I've just accepted that like for me to live the best, most valuable, most useful life for myself and others, I need to be right here. And now I have this incredible opportunity to do this. And it's just like I am the luckiest person in the world. And I say that all the time. Chase has heard me say this every time we see each other, but we're so lucky. Like just to be here right now and exist in this container, it's just a beautiful thing. I'm overflowing with gratitude right now for this. So
I love that.
Thanks for having me.
I could genuinely feel that exuding. You know, I remember it was probably about somewhere between 4 and 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Part of my wind down routine every night, or like the last thing that I do every single night is, and some people may agree with this or disagree with this, but this is just what I do.
Yeah.
I fall asleep to an audiobook or like an interesting podcast, but predominantly an audiobook.
Yeah.
And about sometime between 4 and 5 years ago, I read Eckhart Tolle, got to be 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Let me just listen to that book again, because that book really kind of just opened my eyes to like a whole new way.
Yeah.
And in listening to it, I got a very different experience than reading it because I heard his voice, because he narrates the book.
Yeah.
And what I heard was, and I think that one of the greatest pieces of potentially literature ever written, in my opinion, because it has made and continues to make such an impact on my life, is everything happens now.
Yeah. Always has, always will.
Everything happens now.
Yeah.
Like, it does not happen yesterday or tomorrow. Like, everything in life happens right now.
Yep.
And if you're not there for it, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I want to understand a little bit more about your story and how you got to where you are, and then I want to talk about your morning routine first.
Yeah, of course. So I was born August 7th, 1990. I could start there. I was raised in Indianapolis, Indiana, like a 2-parent household. I have a younger sister. She actually lives in Beverly Hills now. We're like our best friends. As a child, I was raised to be like a high performer. My value was based on how I performed on the sports field, or my grades in class, or like whether or not I held like office in school, like whether I was class president or not. And I tied my identity to these like achievements, these external achievements, or like how good I looked to the neighbors. That transitioned into my military service, where it's much the same. It's like the ribbons and the awards and like the rank, those all matter, and they make your identity this thing that you're always chasing. And I exited the military after just shy of 10 years. I got out and I was like, holy shit, I don't know who the fuck I am. I don't have the uniform. I don't have the rank. I don't have any of these accolades. I was broke. I didn't have a job. Like, all of these things, a relationship that I'd had for several years had just ended. I thought I was going to last forever. And so my confidence was quite low, and I wasn't interested in being curious. I wasn't excited about any part of my life, and I surely wasn't able to ask for help. And so that identity crisis coincided with this like pretty grave mental health crisis, which ultimately led to a handful of suicide attempts. And I'm like getting into it pretty quickly here. And then that was kind of like the hard stop. And a guy that I was living with at the time, who's also great friends with Chase, he was like, yo, we got to do something. So he basically kidnapped me. This is like January 2019. Thought we were going to lunch. He took me to my therapist, my current therapist. And he's like, get out of the car, go in. I'd never been to therapy. I hadn't had emotions. I was 28 years old. I'd never thought about what I might be feeling. Like, I didn't understand. I was ignorant to everything happening inside my body. I tried to like think through everything, and you can probably attest to it. That's a trap. To try and think through a feeling problem, you're stuck every time. And so I go in, I meet this woman. Her name's Sarah Baldwin. She's literally the greatest person in the world. And I learn about this practice called somatic experiencing. And so actually feeling through the trauma stored in your body. And so January 19th, 2019, I start with her. Off to the races.
But I want to unpack that. So what is that?
So basically, the idea is that trauma, not stored in the mind, but subconsciously stored in the body. And so until you release it, then you're limited by what you've experienced. And maybe that like shows up in the form of like a relationship dynamic where it's like, I can't let myself be seen, or I can't commit, or I'm like overly excited or attached to the person that I'm with. Or maybe it's like a professional thing where I'm like unsure of these like unknowns. Like for me professionally, it's shown up a ton where it's like, I have a lot to give and I have things to contribute. Yet I'm afraid for people to like see the work that I do. I'm afraid to commit and fail. I'm afraid to try really hard. And these things are things that I've been working through for the last almost 7 years, holy cow, at this point. And it's been so fantastic to like learn about my body and learn about like what's happening inside, like experiences that are coming up, emotions or feelings, or like basically just gaining awareness around my lived experience and understanding. I think the coolest part is that we're all the same. We're all experiencing something similar. The context might be different, but like you and I, though we've lived different lives, we probably experienced a lot of the same things. And I think that's like a really cool takeaway because I thought I was broken. I thought I was damaged. I thought that like I was the only one having my experience. And like, while that might be true in some sense, it's like not the case. And I think there's like community across like humanity where it's like, holy shit, like this like hard time that I'm going through is probably similar to a hard time that Michael's gone through. And like I can relate to you and you to me, and then we can have community as we move forward into like the next part.
What is the actual therapy, the somatic therapy?
So what we do is we look for opportunities to regulate the nervous system. And so that can come in the form of breath or like tapping or like visualization type techniques. And then
is it EMDR?
It's not, but it's a similar type thing. We're addressing, it's trauma-informed therapy. We're addressing the same type of things. But we use like movement or tapping, touch or breath to access a calmer, more regulated nervous system. And then from there, we can relate through parts of our lived experience, so things that are traumatic. And so a lot of the work that I do is dealing with my younger self. So there's a younger version of Ben. We call him Sweet Ben in therapy, but he's like 16 years old. He just wants to be loved. He just wants to be cared for. He just wants belonging. And there's like things that contribute to the reason why Sweet Ben needed a protector. And so there's a version, an internal version of Ben who's also 16 years old, but he started drinking at 16. And that Ben we call Drunk Ben. And Drunk Ben protected Sweet Ben. And so in social situations, I'd be blackout drunk and I don't have any inhibitions and I'm not afraid. And people like Drunk Ben. He's great. And so Drunk Ben came in and was the protector for this like sweet, soft, most apprehensive version of Ben. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they experience something similar. And this Drunk Ben or this protector version of Ben starts to make decisions for Sweet Ben or this apprehensive version. And he continues to make decisions for the rest of your life. And so the goal of the therapy is for me to access adult Ben, the Ben that's here with you. I call him Coach Ben. He's the most competent, the most connected, the most present version of Ben. And if I can get adult Ben, Coach Ben, to tell this younger, more apprehensive version that everything's going to be all right, and then prove to protector Ben that he doesn't need to do anything, and adult Ben's got it handled, then I can start to make decisions that align with what this current version of me, want to do. That was like a very simplified overview, but like I've been working at this for 6 years and I'm barely breaking into like accessing adult Ben more often. And it starts first with regulation, checking in with my body. So we can talk about my morning routine because that's how I start each day.
I'd love to hear that, but I want to I think that this is very fascinating.
Yeah.
Because, and I guess I had a question of like, are these individual versions of you, I mean, it's you, right? Are they tied to emotions or are they just lived
experience? So basically you get like a trauma might occur and that version of you is like stuck, or that version of you is like had an experience and you can't evolve past it because this like thing happened. And so for me, it's like getting made fun of in school, or like a situation with my parents or family, and this protector version, or like a response happens. It could be a protector, it could be like distance, it could be anything. If you're familiar with internal family systems, there's versions of you that have had different experiences in your life. Like there's community across all of your lived experience. The youngest versions of Michael, the teenage versions of Michael, the young adult versions of Michael, the Michael who got sober, like all of these versions of Michael exist within you. Mm-hmm. And the goal of this practice is to get you to not have these versions of you be at odds, but to be working together to like push the current version into like abundance or expansion or growth or whatever the thing is you're seeking. I'm not a practitioner. I'm just a guy who's gone through the therapy work. But for me, the goal of the practice is to let this young Ben realize that he's just a kid and it's okay to exist as a kid. I'm adult Ben, I've got everything handled. And this protector dude, he's good. He doesn't need to be here. I don't drink anymore. He doesn't exist currently. He didn't need to exist then. But I think there's a takeaway where it's like people get really upset about this, or they feel like shame around the fact that like, oh, there are these parts that don't serve me. But like your nervous system is such a beautiful thing. I was an Army guy, but my therapist calls it like the Navy SEAL of your body. It's like the best in the world at this one thing. It keeps you safe. And so like protector Ben was just there to keep me safe. Adult Ben now shows up poorly in romantic relationships, but it's just a pattern that I'm repeating because I need to keep myself safe. So I'm incredibly distant. I'm rather...
I love that you brought up pattern, you know.
Yeah.
So I've recently... And I've done a lot of therapy over the years.
Yeah.
I've never had real success in traditional cognitive therapy.
Yeah, me either.
It's been like I'd go because I feel like I need to go because I do have a lot of trauma.
Sure.
But I never had like that I love my therapist like relationship. My God.
I love my therapist.
I know, I can feel it.
Yeah.
So I've never had that. However, because of how fresh it is, although I haven't done it in probably a good 5 or 6 weeks, but I got deeply involved in breath.
Yeah.
And
I'm a breathwork practitioner. That's what I do. It saved my life.
It like literally, dude, like what happened for me in breath was I found my inner child.
Yeah.
And I had heard of inner child work. I read the book on inner child work. Or one of the probably zillion books.
I got a book to send you. I got a whole list I'll send you.
But when that came up in the breath, the visualization of my child of me. You know, like when it first came up, I saw this, I had a visualization of a child. And it was far off in the distance. And it was like in this weird sort of like Japanimation world. Yeah. The kid. Yeah. Chaotic, just like dark city at night, lights, bright things flashing, like this kid, about this little kid. Yeah. And I got closer to it and closer to it and closer to it and closer to it in the breath. And the closer I got, the more I realized that that kid was me. Yeah. With my shoulders, like, this is how clear it was for me. It's basically a kid, eyes wide open like deer in headlights, shoulders as high up into his ears as possible, frozen, couldn't move, scared to death. Yeah. And I got closer to it and closer to it, and I just exploded in emotion, like hysterical, because I wanted to help that kid so much. But what I didn't realize was, it's not a kid. It's not that kid. It's me. Yeah. And so when we were done with the breath, it was obviously very, very like emotionally charged experience for me, because I really felt hopeless. Yeah. But after the breath, I was sitting with the practitioner after a little meditation, and he was like, "That is you, Michael. Like, that child is you. Yeah. And it's a version living inside of your soul. Yeah. Now." And it could be that the breath opened up some neural pathways that haven't really been opened in a very long time or ever. Yeah. And that is what we just unearthed.
Created the time and space for you to feel, which is like, I think, what the most valuable part of the breath is. It's a moment for you to stop thinking, start feeling. And what an incredible gift that you like got to meet him. Because like now you know he's real, that smaller version of you. And like you don't need the breath to access him. You can see him now, right?
Totally.
You can feel him. Like you can commune with him now, like whenever you want.
What it did for me, though, like what it did for me, you know, because like in therapy, right? Like you talk about past, you talk about trauma, you talk about this, and like it's like okay, great. Like I know that we're talking about it. I know that we're exposing ourselves to those emotions again. But like, how am I using that experience in the chair to change and implement positivity into my life today, outside of just like navigating what happened, right? What happened for me with the inner child was Mike basically said, okay, so now we understand that this is a real block for you. And I did set an intention going into the breath work. And that intention was, I want to understand what is standing in the way of me and the ability to be present. Yeah. And focus at times where I really want to be, and I just simply can't. Yeah. Whether it's in meditation or whether it's on a project that I've got to get through work, like I really struggle. It's like, you know, some people will call it ADHD. I don't know if it's ADHD.
Join the club.
Yeah. Yeah. But like there's a presence thing there. Sure. And that's what showed up in the breath. Yeah. That child. Yeah. And so he was like, okay, so now we understand that that child is just ferociously hungry for your attention. Mm-hmm. He is going to want all of your attention all the time. Yeah. And the way he knows how to get your attention is by telling you, you suck. Yeah. You're not good enough. You're not tall enough. You're not smart enough. You're not successful enough. You're not smart enough. That's because that's what that kid feels about himself. Yeah. And so he is constantly looking for your attention, and he only knows one way to get it. Yeah. We've got to heal that kid. Yeah. You got to heal the kid.
You got to tell him those things. So every morning I do a journaling
So let's hear the morning routine.
Yeah, so I get out of bed and people are like, oh my God, morning routine, 5 hours of my day, I can't do this. Okay, my morning routine takes 90 seconds. 90 seconds. I get out of bed, I put my feet flat on the ground. I think the start to any presence activity is just like recognizing where you are. So I'm here in the room, my feet are flat, my toe, my midfoot, my heel, my butt, it's square in my seat. I check in with my spine, it's strong and it's straight. I relax my shoulders, I soften my arms, I feel the weight of my hands in my lap. From there, I take a breath in through my nose, fill from the bottom up, I soften around the air, I expand to the front, to the sides, to the back. The air creeps into my lungs, I feel them expand into my rib cage, and then I feel the air start to creep into my throat. I pause at the top, find my heartbeat. Holy shit, I'm alive. Like, that's fucking sick. Feel my heartbeat. I just check in. Do I feel light? Am I heavy? Is there pain in my shoulder? Does my hip still hurt? Like, what's happening for me right now? And I purse my lips and I elongate my exhale. I try and make it as long as possible. And when I do that, I think about something I'm immensely grateful for, leaving my body and entering the room around me to carry me into the next part of my day. I think gratitude is like the secret sauce. If you're grateful, you can't be anxious. If you're grateful, you can't be sad. If you're grateful, you can't be angry. Fill the room with gratitude. Then I get up, I drink a cold glass of water, another opportunity to check in. I make sure it's cold so I feel it going down my throat. I know the taste. Does it feel different than yesterday? Like what's happening in my body? It goes into my belly so I can feel that, holy shit, that's my body. I live in this thing. That's wild. And then I get outside. Nature has been my most valuable tool. It is my favorite regulation tool. So I go outside, I don't bring my phone. I look outside my personal bubble and I just take in what's around me. I usually do this thing called a wonder walk. So 5 colors on my walk. I note the color, I note the texture of the thing. So if it's those leaves behind you, they're like smooth. If it's this box, it's like matte color. 5 colors. I do 4 sensations. So like the ground feels hard, or like the skin, my skin has my clothes rubbing against it, the breeze past my ear. I do 3 sounds. So I note 3 sounds on the walk, and then I do 2 smells. And then my last thing is one single thing I'm grateful for, and that's the thing that I did before with the breath. So it's like that gratitude is still present with me. I come back in the room and I start a writing practice. So I'm trying to write a book. I probably shouldn't talk about that because it'll keep me from finishing it, but I'm trying to write this book and I hate it. I love writing. Reading and writing are 2 of my favorite things of all time. When it has to be for like a goal, like finishing this book, I hate it. I don't find time on my calendar. Like I won't do it. And so what I've done is just ensured that as soon as I come back in the house, I start writing. But I start the writing process every single day with this journaling practice. And I write a letter to my younger self. And what you just said, where you have to like give that younger version of Michael those things. That
so what is like, give me an example of what that looks like.
Yeah. So I say like, hey, Ben, and I have a photo of him. He's 9 years old. I have my photo on the fridge. I put it on the desk. I write to him. I say, hey man, like it's great to see you again. You know, it takes different forms, but it's great to see you again. Like he wore glasses. I'm like, your glasses look sick. He was pretty sad, got bullied a lot. He was sad. And I'm like, look, man, everything's good. Like you just have to be a kid today. I'll take care of everything else. It's no stress. You're good. And I finished with saying like, I love you and it's all going to be all right. Or like something along those lines, a vote of confidence and like our ability to relate. Oh, one thing that I always include is like, no matter what happens, like if everyone else abandons you, I've got you. I think that's like a key part because like that's the thing he's most afraid of. And so like if everybody leaves, if mom's not there, if dad's not there, if your friends make fun of you again, it's chill. I've got you. So just be a kid today. I'll take care of the adult shit. And then I go into my writing process. But with the writing, that takes like 8 minutes. Like it's not you're like, I have a dog and 14 kids and I can't like find the time. Like, yeah, you can. Surely you can.
I think this is it's probably the 135th Creatures That Habit podcast episode. No one has had a morning routine like that. I mean, there's slight elements of it, but like I just love being able to sit across from somebody after interviewing so many people about their morning routine.
Yeah.
And like having stuff that like the people listening can totally implement. Like I want to do the 5 colors, the 4 textures, the 4 sensations, the 3 sounds,
2 smells,
and one thing I'm grateful for. Like I love the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
No phone, no distractions, just exist.
And just you're standing there and you're just experiencing what's happening in front of you.
People are like, I can't go for a walk. I'm like, I walk to the end of my block and back. It takes 45 seconds. Like this is not a big thing. I think my greatest issue with like wellness, so I was a gym guy for a long time. I've been a strength and conditioning coach. This is my 17th year doing this. My greatest issue with wellness as a whole is like you go to Google with a thing that you care deeply about, something you're trying to solve for yourself, and you're inundated with like 50,000 things. They're all different probably, or like, you know, there's a million different protocols, a million different ways you're supposed to do this thing, and they probably all work to some extent. But people get overwhelmed and then they don't do anything, and that's like a huge frustration for me. But then the other flip side is like people forget about the end goal or the aim. It's like, where are you trying to go? My morning routine serves the aim, my aim. The thing I want is different from the thing that you want. So maybe our morning routines should be different. I don't know. It's not about the modality. It's about what you get from doing the practice. Like, it's funny. I said I'm a breathwork guy. I've been doing cold exposure nearly every day since 2011. Like the bulk of my work is breathwork and cold exposure, but there are seasons in my life where cold exposure takes different forms. Not everything works all the time for everyone. And that even applies to me. It's like, sometimes it's a 10-second dip in the ocean. Sometimes it's a 5-minute ice bath in a 30-degree tub. Like it takes different forms, but it serves. I think the thing, and this is like something that I haven't really thought about until this moment, but the thing that I'm most excited about with my own wellness is that I've just been able to get really clear about the thing that I want. I talk about with training, presence is really the thing that I'm after. I'm setting the conditions to be more present more often.
Okay, I want to talk about presence for a little bit. I want to like, what does that mean?
It starts with regulating my nervous system. So the most regulated, the calmest version of Ben, the clearest version of Ben is the one that's present.
Don't you think, I have a question for you.
Send it.
Don't you think, and this is going to be so hard, but it's probably true. Like, don't you think that if you removed your phone from your life?
Just wait, let me tell you. So I don't use it. I literally don't use it. I go on it like twice a day. I don't use it. I don't go on my social media on my phone. I go on the computer and reply to messages or comment on things. I don't use it. I have somebody, I probably shouldn't share this. I have somebody who takes all my content. So the way I do content is I film for 4 hours with a videographer. They edit all the videos. I write all the copy for 4 hours and then I send it to somebody and they upload it.
That's what I do too.
Yeah. And then I go on, a couple blocks a week. I go on and reply to stuff. But my phone, people who know me, Chase knows this, I don't use I don't go on. There's like going to be 7 text messages unread from Chase because I just don't go on it. I lock it in the car every morning. I don't go on it. I hate it.
It's the worst thing that's ever happened.
I just did 5 days without it, and it was the greatest 5 days of my entire life. I was also working on a thing that I care so deeply about. So I run these psilocybin retreats for veterans. A couple buddies and I started this initiative, and we're holding these. It's so special, man. These guys that haven't been able to access vulnerability in a way that serves them. And we're using psilocybin as a tool to get them into that place where they can start to feel and relate to their lived experience. And it could be like a, war-related thing or a childhood thing, or like a lot of these guys were in business school. Like that's stressful as fuck. And like they have to deal with like that transition out of the army into the professional world. And so basically, we're just holding space for guys to start to feel stuff. And it's funny because I talk about like I wasn't 28 until I had a feeling, and I was just ignorant, focused on everything else. And as soon as I started to slow down, it's actually funny. So randomly I'll like repost stuff on my story. Like that's the only real thing I do on social media via my phone. I'll like, oh, that's a funny thing. I'll repost that. And like in my like 5 minutes a day that I might go on, and there's this picture of a mouse riding a snail, and it was like, I'll get there when I get there. And that is me. Like my goal, you said, what's the goal? I think my goal is really to just trust in the timing of the universe. And if I'm present, I'm not worried about what's to come. I'm not worried about what happened before, but I'm just trusting in the timing of the universe, and it's going to unfold in my favor. And, the cynic would be like, oh, that's bullshit. All right, have fun with your like anxiety riddled life. Like I'll just be over here chilling, and like, it's going to be fine. I do a lot of tapping. So I don't know if you're familiar with EFT tapping, but basically like you reinforce an expansive thought. So like if I have a limiting belief about myself, like I'm not good enough, or I'm like behind, or I'm like, there's this like sense of urgency that I've created. I do this tapping routine where you tap specific meridian points on your body and you repeat a mantra. And my favorite mantra is, in this moment, I have everything I need. And that's true. In this moment, the present moment, the only moment that's real, you want for nothing, you need for nothing. You, Michael, are perfect right now.
Dude, I have to stop you again, man. You said 2 things back to back that are super like monumental for me in my life through the breath.
Yeah, dude.
It's the second breathwork session I had.
Yeah.
The first one I did, and I had done Wim Hof and like, box breathing and other styles of breathwork that are that like just have no, it's just a very different, I mean, I'm not knocking or downplaying or anything of those styles of breath work, but the breath work that I've been doing, this rebirthing breath work, is like a very different
experience.
How
does it sound?
It goes
3-part breath. It's good.
Yeah. And so the first one was pure love.
Yeah.
That like I love like I'd never felt before in my life.
Yeah.
The second time I did it, I just was like, basically kind of walked into it, and I was like, wow, that was an experience like of a lifetime that I had yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm back here today. I want to sort of experience something similar.
Yeah.
Let's just continue to peel back the onion on this.
Yeah.
And about 5 minutes in, I dropped right in to the sort of like real physical component of it that was terrifying in the first time. Like I was so scared of it because I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
But I was like, I flew up. Mike ran over to me and was like rubbing my chest, and he's like, dude, Like, you are having a strong reaction to this. Yeah. It's okay and normal.
Yeah.
This is your energy, man.
Yeah.
Like, your energy is like pulsating through your body. I could feel it when I touch you.
Yeah.
He's like, you need this work. So like, so I went back in and it was okay. But the second day, I kind of knew that was going to come potentially. And so that came. I didn't bug out about it. I really breathed into it, rather.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the mantra that came up in my head was, for the last 20 minutes of the breath, you have everything you need. Yeah. You have everything you need.
Sure
you have
do.
everything you need. You have everything you need. It just was there. And I was like elated with emotion and happiness and joy. Like, I love my life.
Yeah.
I really do. I love my life. And of course, I'm human. There's moments that I'm in doubt. There's moments where I'm in fear that can potentially debilitate me. There's moments where, I don't feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. So does everybody else.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But really, like, I am very grateful and lucky to be where I am in my life. Yeah. And that said, like, having everything you need is not something that we typically think or that rolls off the tongue.
No.
Right?
I always think, like, how would it change how you approach the next thing? Like, if you just knew that you have everything that you need, or one of my favorite ones is, like, if I do nothing else for today, it will have been enough. Because, like, I'm a former Army officer. Like, 23-year-old Ben was a menace. I could work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't have an off button. I was neglecting every single need that I had, but I was effective and I was good. But now I take a step back, and there's still parts of me. We talk about lived experience. There's parts of me that need to be that guy. I need to be this, like, forward center of mass, hard charging. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I think in slowing down and just accepting the thing that you said, that I have everything that I need right now, the most beautiful experiences of my life have materialized. I always say that, like, the most beautiful things I've ever experienced have been on the other side of vulnerability. And, like, for me, the slowing down is an act of vulnerability. It's an act. Being here in the moment with you, it's, like, probably not my knee-jerk reaction. It's not my thing that I would normally do. Like, I would want to be, like, solving problems, or, like, I don't know. I don't even know, like, making money or whatever it is. But, like, I've just realized that, like, and I think there's a tie-in here with, like, relationships are the most valuable thing. And so, like, a younger Ben, the youngest Ben, was interested in things. An early adulthood Ben was interested in experiences, like, how drunk am I going to get, or, like, what's the party going to be like? And, like, this newer, more present version of Ben is interested in relationships. It's like the things that are going to feed my soul and the experience that I'm hoping to have later are birthed in beautiful, connected, deep relationships with people who are aligned in my vision, aligned in my work, aligned in all of it. And so, like, that's part of the reason I reached out, is I was like, holy shit, this dude's, like, speaking my language, which I think is, like, a pretty neat thing with social media. It's, like, a pretty neat thing to connect in that way. But yeah, man, I'm so happy that you've gotten exposure to breath work. It literally saved my life. If we talk about, like, the somatic experiencing work, moving out of your analytical thinking head and into your feeling body, there is no quicker way than moving your body. And it can come in many forms. You could jump around, you could go lift weights, or you could breathe. And I love the breath because it's, like, individual. It's like your fingerprint. Like, nobody breathes the same. And so, like, I'm having this individual experience where I can connect to myself in ways that, like, other modalities might not allow me to. And, like, I don't know, man, breath work is just, and what's crazy, and I was going to say something, I was predicting that your experience would go different, where you had this incredible transformative experience your first time, and you enter the second one with expectation around how it might go. And I was like, oh, he's going to say that it, like, didn't go the same, or he didn't access those feelings, or, like, little Mike wasn't there, or, like, and then there's, like, disappointment or sadness or resentment towards the activity. And that's been my experience, where if I enter a thing with expectations, it never goes the way that I want it to, or at least it most often doesn't. And I think the greatest gift I've given myself in the last couple of years is opening myself up for opportunities for play. And I talked about my transition and my identity crisis and not being curious about what might interest me. Like, I was stuck behind this, like, threshold, and I couldn't, like, get around it. And I talk a lot. I do public speaking, and I talk to veteran communities about finding purpose, meaning, and fulfillment post-military service. And the thing I lead with is curiosity. If you're curious about a thing that might interest you, then you're probably more inclined to participate in that thing. And then if you can just enter into it as a form of play, experience without expectation, then, like, no matter what happens, it's all good because it's a learning experience. And so I approach everything as play. This opportunity here with you is play. My friendship with Chase, the work that I do professionally, all of it is just my opportunity or my chance to experience the world around me without any expectation. And I'm never disappointed. I'm always excited. And I'm ready to go again, which has, like, been a really cool thing. I know that's, like, a tangent off of what you just said, but
I want to hear, I'd love to hear about your sort of evening wind down routine if you have one.
Yeah, dude, that's rough. I've been a bad sleeper this is some limiting belief, a story that I tell myself that I'm a bad sleeper. It's not true. I'm the most tired. It's funny. I think on one of our recent podcasts, I said if there was a word to describe me, it's tired. I'm just a tired guy, but I can't sleep. I could sleep on the floor over there for 8 hours in a row, but you put me in my bed in my home, I'm wide awake. And I think maybe there's aspects of this where it's like I'm so present all the time during the day. I'm not thinking about anything else. And I get into bed and it's my first moment of like, I'm alone in my bed. And then all the stuff I haven't thought about during the day just comes flooding in. And so I spend a lot of my time horizontal in my room thinking about all the things I've ever said out loud, which isn't ideal and doesn't serve me. Mm-hmm. But I've been really committed. For the last 18, 24 months, I've been really committed to my sleep. And it's come in the form of some behavior change. It's come in the form of some supplementation. It's like a whole bunch of stuff. But for each night, I try and finish my workday. I have a hard stop on my workday. So I try and finish the workday by 6. I take a long walk outside. I live right by the beach. I'm incredibly lucky. So I walk down the beach, usually an hour and a half long walk. I come back. I seek connection. So that's like...
Do you listen to music or anything on that walk?
I usually wear noise canceling headphones and listen to nothing. So I don't want you to talk to me. Like for sure, I don't want you to talk to me, but I don't want to listen to anything. You know, like I just have them in so people don't come up and say something. Not that anybody would, but like... Venice is small. I know everyone knows everyone. So I usually have headphones on. They're never really playing anything. I just want to take in the world. I usually don't have my phone. If I have it with me, it's like in a back pocket or in a backpack. I usually wear a vest, like a weighted vest or a backpack. So I'll put my phone in the backpack just in case. On the walk. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just in case I like break my leg and I need to call for help or something. But so I just walk and the sun's probably setting and I look at the colors and I feel the air and I like honor the fact that like I'm alive. Like I shouldn't be here. Try to kill myself a whole bunch of times. This is extra time. I'm incredibly grateful to exist in this world right now. And so I do this walk, I come back, I seek connection. And that's either like connection with myself, connection with literature, connection with a person, like whatever. I seek connection. It could be connection with art. So maybe that's when I like turn music on and I'm like, oh, appreciating this person's like life's work. That's cool. I work with musicians, so I have like an appreciation for it. I eat a healthy dinner, usually meat, vegetables, starch, like whatever. And then I try to start the wind down process 90 minutes prior to sleep. And my goal has been to get into bed by 10. It doesn't always happen, but that's like putting the phone away. I talked about journaling in the morning. I do a similar journaling practice at night. Morning is 3 pages, stream of consciousness. I don't know if you're familiar with Artist's Way.
I've heard of it, but I'm not.
I'll get you the book.
Okay.
The 2 tenets are you practice these morning pages where it's stream of consciousness.
Pages, I know for sure.
3 pages. And then the other tenet is this artist date. Or like, I think that's the language she uses. It's been a long time since I've read it, but this opportunity for you as an artist to go and explore on your own. It could be a trip to the grocery store and just like viewing the world around you. It could be you going and drawing. It could be a hike. It could be literally anything. You going to a concert, whatever. A thing that serves you in your art, but a time on your calendar for you and only you. And so I've employed those things for, 10 years. But in the evening, I do a similar practice. And this is where I try and clear out all of those thoughts that I would have when I get into bed. So I like predict all the stuff that I might think about when I get into bed. I put it on paper so it's there for me to come back to if I need to. And then I get into bed and I have obstructive sleep apnea. So I wear a CPAP. I wear an eye mask. I usually wear earplugs. My room is freezing cold. Freezing cold. I sleep completely naked and I sleep on my back. And if I do all of those things, I'm pretty good and get to sleep. But I'm also one of those types that could sleep for 14 hours in a row. So once I get to sleep, I'm good. But my alarm goes off super early. So it's like, so I probably get like, 4 or 5 hours a night of good, really good sleep.
Man.
I'm an anti-wearable guy. Chase gets pissed at me because my game is like actually feeling. I'm interested in like your subjective experience. So like, being a gym guy, there's like the dudes who train percentages and there's the dudes who train like RIR and there's the guys who do like RPE models. And like, I'm really interested in like auto-regulating my life. So it's like on days where I don't feel great, I probably don't push. Like not just in the gym, but like in my life.
It's so funny you say that. So like, I am unfortunately, fortunately, however you want to look at it, like I really do love the data, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not wearing my Whoop.
It's valuable. It's valuable for sure.
I don't know how valuable it actually is. It's nice to know maybe once a week.
Yeah.
But like the truth is that if I check my sleep score And I think I've slept 7.5 hours, but really, like, I didn't get great sleep. And, you know, I only got an hour for 40 minutes of REM. And, you know, I was up 17 times. Like, that doesn't make me feel great.
No, the reason I don't, so I wore I won't name them, but I wore a wearable for like a month, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, 2019 probably. And I had two things happen. Either I would wake up and feel incredible, and it would tell me I was not recovered. And I'd be like, okay, well, that's silly. I feel incredible. I'm just going to like drive hard today. The inverse, which was the worst possible scenario, which is what you're describing, is like I would wake up and it would be like, you're 100% recovered. And I'm like, well, I feel like a bag of ass. Like, what is wrong with me? Again, It's that like shame cycle where it's like, I'm broken, I'm damaged. I feel a certain way, but it's telling me. And that also replicates my like childhood and like experiences in the Army where like needs are unmet. And it's like, I feel a certain thing. I need a certain thing. I need sleep. And they're like, fuck you, Ben, you can't sleep. And so that brings up, you know, elements of my experience. And so those patterns, we talked about patterns earlier, but those patterns where young Ben felt neglected or felt like he wasn't enough or felt like he didn't belong, like those things started to show up in my life. And guess who comes online to make decisions? Protector Ben. And he's a drunk asshole and he makes really bad decisions. And so yes, about like, you know, why it matters or like how this all plays together. It's like when triggered, drunk Ben shows up, makes decisions, and adult Ben's like, what the fuck, brother? Like that doesn't serve us. Or that doesn't serve me for sure. So to bring it all the way back to the beginning, the somatic experiencing work is to try and regulate in a way so that child Ben doesn't get triggered. Drunk Ben doesn't come online to protect, and adult Ben can just live uninhibited. It doesn't happen. That's an ideal scenario. But being able to relate to those triggers more effectively allows adult Ben to show up more frequently.
Are there like a fair amount of people that are doing that kind of therapy work?
Not that I know of. Not that I know. You have to seek them out. I'm actually going back to school to do it. So in 3 years, I'll be a practitioner, which is really, really exciting.
That's awesome.
It's literally saved my life. I talk about it all the time. So Chase knows this, but like January, February of this year was the most depressed I've ever been in my entire life. Like loss of purpose. I had tried a couple professional things that didn't pan out. People like view me on the internet and they think I've got my shit together. You are going to be sorely mistaken when you like actually look at my life. Yeah, it was rough. It was a really challenging time. And what's funny, because I do this journaling practice, I'm looking at the journaling and I'm like, holy shit, this is like basically the same shit I wrote in 2018 when I was like on the verge of killing myself every morning. But now I have tools. This is the greatest vote of confidence for like seeking help or seeking therapy or establishing protocols or systems to like navigate these types of things. It's like now I have the tools. We talked a couple of weeks ago about like step actions. I'm a military guy. Like in the Army, it's like step 1, then step 2, then step 3. Well, if I feel overwhelmed or I feel depression or I feel a certain thing, there is a step. Ben's depressed. Great. Walk outside. That's step 1.
Right.
And had I known in 2018 that it was that simple, my life would be very different. My default is like, let's isolate and not reach out to anybody and never go outside. And water, fuck water. I'm not going to drink any of that. Sleep, that's for the weak. And so like, it's been really special to like, so I heard this thing, again, this is me ranting on a weird tangent, but I heard this thing a couple of years ago where it was like, in moments of isolation or when you feel lonely, like if you look at my life, I got to tell you about this thing that I did during COVID that informs this. But if you look at my life, the places or the times when I was most depressed is when I neglected physical fitness, when I neglected relationships with people I care about, and when I neglected my sleep. And I think there's the component of like those relationships that's really important where like, even in isolation or even when I'm feeling lonely or abandoned or whatever, there's community or relation between all the versions of Ben that have existed. And it's like, I find that in the journaling practice. You find it in the breathwork when you meet young Mike. Like that's really cool. And if I'm feeling lonely or alone, I can like relate to those versions of Ben and they've got my back when I don't have it, you know? I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but I told Chase about this. During COVID, I did this 500-day exercise where since I'm anti-wearable, I was like, how can I subjectively measure my wellness on a daily basis? And so what I did is I had 6 metrics. One was objective, how many hours of sleep I had the night prior. And then I had 5 additional. One was connection to self, connection to other, intentional movement, life-giving nutrition, and play. And they can come in any form. I'm not like, it's not a drop-down menu, like whatever it is. And I'm able to decide. And one activity, like if you and I go for a workout, it hits like a bunch of those things. We get a meal after, holy shit, there's food. And I ranked each day, color ordered, green, yellow, red. Red was I did not valuably contribute to my life or the life of someone else, and I am not prepared for nor excited for tomorrow. Yellow was like, I'm apathetic. Meh, I don't care. Green was the inverse of red. It was I valuably contributed to my life, the life of somebody else, and I am excited and prepared for tomorrow. And I know those are like very specific metrics, but like it made sense in my brain. So I did 500 days in a row. If you could guess, how many green days do you think I had? 50 would be 10%.
70 days.
Had 14 days, 2%. And I made sure not to look at it while I was completing the thing. I just it was a Google Doc. I just let it go. I would always be like on the next day. And I was like, holy shit, maybe the data can tell me something. I'm not a data guy, but like maybe there's something valuable here. And so I looked at all the green. They all had 10 hours of sleep or more. If I had 10 hours of sleep, automatic green. Automatic. I told my therapist that and she's like, get 10 hours of sleep, you idiot. Like, what are you doing? And then I was like, okay, well, there's a lot of yellow and way too much red. What else is contributing here? And the other things that all 14 green days had in common were intentional movement and connection to others. And so we talked very early about how, like, if you Google a thing that like, I need to fix my weight, or I need to fix my self-confidence, or I need to fix my relationship with my partner, and you get inundated with information. Like, I just simplified my wellness into 3 things. For Ben to show up as the best possible version of Ben, the 3 things I need to prioritize are quality sleep first, and enough of it, intentional movement, and connection with people that I love. And so for me, my friend calls it Ben math. As long as I do those 3 things, my life is great. And it's held true since. It's been 3 years. It's held true. As long as I move, as long as I sleep, and as long as I get to spend, like you are that guy today. Like, as long as I spend time with somebody that I care deeply about, my life is great. And it's been fantastic.
I think that has to be the way we conclude this podcast, dude.
Yeah, dude, whatever.
I think that, like, there are 3 things that the listener can take away, and I know that I wanted to delve into sobriety, and
we can do it again. We can do another one.
I think we're gonna.
Also,
have to.
I could talk to this wall for 5 hours.
Me too.
Chase says I show up too calm. Like, I know I could talk to these boxes until Sunday.
I'm like, I feel like ending the podcast with 3 concise pieces of information that you have done a 500-day survey on is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
And I think, I've said for years and years, because I really do believe, like, if when people ask me, like, oh, like, if you had a superpower, what would that superpower be? Or like, what is your superpower? Yeah. For me, it's without a question of a doubt connecting with humans at scale. Like, that is what I love. Yeah. I live for the human connection, the human engagement. It is really what drives me, And so I've always said, like, the business of business is relationships. The foundation of relationships is trust. Like, I believe relationships are truly what make the world go round. Yeah. And they're so much more valuable than money, because with the right relationships, authentically, the money's is going to be a part of that, right? Like, without the right relationships, you can kind of kiss money goodbye, right? And I'm not saying it's all about money, because it's absolutely not.
Replace money with happiness,
100%
fulfillment.
Relationships. Yeah. We all want, like, bliss is like a thing, right? Sure. It's like you like, that's why people really, really love to drink alcohol. Yeah. They get high on drugs, or they have, like, an experience, because, like, it's an experience that is just so different, right, than, like, your day-to-day life. However, some of the greatest experiences, if not the greatest experiences, come with your friends around a table, having a good bite to eat, talking about whatever.
I had a mentor say to me, the only reason anyone does anything is to feel better than they do right now. And so, like, I think people just need to be discerning about, like, what they're trying to feel and how they can go about getting there. It's like, I'm a drunk. I was a drunk. I thought that was the answer. Definitely wasn't. Connecting with real people in real time and building something. I'll talk about it for like 2 seconds, but so the advice I would always give young soldiers, so I was like an Army officer, right? And, like, I was mentoring and training and coaching these young soldiers, and the advice I would always give is, like, take care of your physical body, read like your life depends on it. And now, removed from that, I would add a third. It's connect with those that you love, or seek connection, or something along those lines. Yeah, I think that there's something really powerful about caring deeply about a thing, and then having people to your left and right care equally or more about that thing. That's the thing I miss about the Army. I haven't been able to replicate it in my life. I cared so much about the thing, and everybody in the formation cared as much as I did. And it's like, team sports is probably the only other, like, fuck, man, you can't even imagine it. It's unreal. And, like, the only way you access that in the civilian world, or in the world outside of, like, a sport team or whatever, is, like, by building deep relationships where you can align and communicate and go for it. Mm-hmm. And I've been seeking that for 6.5 years now. And I'm just starting to get there. You know, it's shit like this and connections to Chase and, again, being vulnerable, opening myself up, because all the beautiful shit in my life is on the other side of being vulnerable.
Guys, I know that you enjoyed that conversation. We really ran the gamut and talked about a lot. We talked about a lot. And I think what it really boils down to here in this episode is vulnerability is a massive asset. A massive asset. Because if you are not able to get vulnerable, or vulnerability is something that you shy away from or are afraid of, you're actually living behind a mask.
Can I define it for the group? Like a younger Ben would define vulnerability as like doing the hard thing. But I think even more specifically, it's like making the implicit explicit. Thoughts, feeling, action. The thing that you don't want to do, or that thing that's stuck inside, get it out. Make the implicit explicit. And like that's been my challenge to myself. The things that I'm afraid to say, fucking say them. The things I'm afraid to do them. Because like you only get one chance. You only get one life here. And like I said, I'm playing in extra time, so there's like more freedom or wiggle room, I guess. But like, yeah, it's changed my life. It's changed my entire life. Because I realized that like, I'm still here. Like nothing bad has happened, you know?
Gone through everything else in your life to date.
Yeah, you've made it.
So vulnerability. And then the three simple things that Ben just said on the way out here is get some good quality sleep.
Yeah.
Connect with other human beings. Intentionally move your body. And I agree wholeheartedly with those things. At the end of the day, family, we were born into this world with one emotion that we didn't know about, and that's love. And like as we've grown, we've interrupted that emotion with exposure. Love is what we're meant to do. And that's not just loving others, that's loving ourselves. And so I loved this conversation. I really did. I really do believe that at the end of the day, it's everything we do in life is on our mission to love and be loved. And that can be a challenge. But if you're aware of it, and you take care of yourself through potentially those three things. If you're listening to this and you're like, God, I just need the thing. I just need to change a thing. Maybe you just start with one of those things. And it's like, hey, for the next 10 days, I'm going to do my absolute best to get at least 8 hours of sleep. Or if you're sleeping for 4 hours, at least 6 hours of sleep.
Or 4 hours and 1 minute. Like, let's start small. There's always room for growth. Like you owe it to yourself.
Ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, shapes and sizes, I really appreciate you guys. I love you for listening in. I can't thank you enough for being part of this journey. So do us a favor, share this podcast with friends and family. That would mean a lot. It would mean a lot. Give us a 5-star rating and review if you're feeling super generous. And aside from that, until the next one, y'all, peace.